Mali Baum, welcome on stage. The stage is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here, also for the people online and offline. I'm very proud to be here. I have so many hats today. I'm also the head of the advisory board at IFA, which makes me super proud to see how it came up. And of course, I'm also very much Berliner, own WLOUNGE company, which is an ecosystem taking startup from 0 to 100. We just made beautiful to exit with Berliner startups. And I would say that our mission in general is to really leverage the innovation and the collaboration with corporates, family office, and the brilliant universities and innovation, I would say science and deep tech that we are having here. But it's not about me today. It's about Berlin. It's about IFA. And it's about presenting what we are driving together. One of the beautiful things that we're doing every year, we call it We Go Crazy, and we build a German tech Oscar. It's called Tech Awards Gala, and this year it's coming December 14 with the mayor of Berlin in the Rotes Rathaus. Before I'm starting, I would love to bring on stage someone very special, someone that eventually the private sector, as entrepreneur and creative as you can be, we are driving a lot of changes, but we cannot do it without the public sector. I would love to invite with me, and very proud to have him with me today, Mali Baum. Please come on stage, Mali Bill.
We're not married yet.
Thank you. State Secretary of the Berlin Economic Department. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Good morning, everyone.
Mali Bill, we are very proud to have you at IFA today. And let's kind of like have it as an open discussion. I think we're speaking the same language anyway. We want the same for our startups and our industry. My first approach for you is you are doing a lot for the economy here. You are driving a lot of startup innovation from the power of the Senate to give them the feeling that they are very welcome and we are a very disruptive and diverse city. Can you share with us more of what are you doing, what is coming on the pipeline, and share with our audience today what is Berlin planning ahead?
I am very happy to do that. Thanks for having me again, and good morning, everyone. My department has one ground rule. We don't do anything without the ecosystems here in Berlin. When we first started thinking about creating some kind of a startup agenda, I told my people on my side, let's do it with the ecosystem together. And we created a startup agenda that goes till the year of 2026, and we have 5 action fields, very political term, but we call those 5 fields action fields. It's all about diversity. It's all about talent. It's all about cooperation. It's about impact. And the bottom line for that agenda is the city being the city of cooperation. That's what it's all about, bringing people together, bringing actors together. My job is probably every day to try to open doors for people. And our promoter for the economic development here in Berlin, Berlin Partner, is a very important actor in that system because they support the companies. They support in finding property. They support in finding fundings. They support in finding visas. They have a special service called Business Immigration Service. If there is a company from abroad that is trying to settle in Berlin, bringing their people with them, they need very often visas. And Berlin Partner found a way. They have a special team that can manage that within 2 weeks. That is very special and very unusual when it comes to German bureaucracy. And we're very proud of Berlin Partner that they managed to do that. And our investment bank here in Berlin offers a lot of fundings when it comes to startups and foundings. And we have one focus theme at the Department of Economic Affairs, Energy, that's missing in that name up here, and public enterprises, we focus on female foundings. We started that 2 years ago, and we scanned all of our fundings, state fundings, especially when it comes to female founding. And when I look at it's called Gründungsbonus, we said, let's see if we can push that to a new level. We have a Gründungsbonus Plus now. Female founders get 10,000 euros on top when they found a startup, for instance. So they get 60,000 euros in total. That was a bit of a fight to go that way, but it's very important. We have over 50% of females in the city of Berlin, and only every fifth startup is founded by a woman. That's a problem. Speaking of diversity, for instance. And we have a lot of different fundings. For instance, we give grants to people that try to found a startup here in Berlin. And the reason why I think it's successful, the numbers are going up, and my counterparts in the different states in Germany are calling me up and asking, how do you do it? And that's probably an important sign that Berlin is on the right track. And one of the most important jobs I have, my senator has, is bringing people together, bringing the actors in the ecosystem together, open doors, and that's why we created a roundtable startups. And that roundtable is not what we call in German Quasselbude. That's a format for dialogue. That's a format that creates at the end of every roundtable one task we all have to work on. And the Gründungsbonus Plus came out of one of those sessions at the Roundtable Startups. So we do a lot, actually.
I know, this is why you're here. And if I see Michel Bell is one of the doers, not the talkers, which we also see sometimes politicians or people that coming from the politics. There's a lot of buzzwords, but we absolutely see the way you translate it into execution. So thank you for that. My other question will be, Berlin is really aiming to be the sustainable, green efficient, energy efficient city. And we have also a lot of startups, also family office here in the audience. Specifically, I know that this is their thema. We are launching a full one-stop shop building exactly with this thema to highlight how much this is important also for the city and also for our ecosystem. What can you share with us? What can you share with the startups? How they can get an access or maybe collaboration with you? And what is the way even to work with the Berlin Senate?
Well, first off, you can ring me up every time that you want. I'll come everywhere. That's not a problem. And that is not one of those typical politicians' sentences. I'll be there. As I already said, the bottom line of the Startup Agenda 2022-2026 is the city of cooperation. We bring actors together. We have a list of, for instance, impact startups at my department, and we have a list of institutions that support these kind of startups, and we bring them together. And sometimes it's important to create some kind of a beacon so the world sees there's something going on in Berlin. And that's why we invest in certain branches, typically, especially when it comes to fintech, when it comes to games, when it comes to green tech, when it comes to life science. We're about to open a house of finance and tech, for instance. We are working on opening a house of games that will have, it's kind of like a hub structure that will have companies in it, that will have at the end the Museum of Gaming that is situated in Berlin under one roof. And that's what we're doing. And if you have an idea, and every idea is welcome at my department, let's talk. And talking is probably one of the best things we can do in Berlin. And after these talks, we know what you want, and we can bring you together with the players here in Berlin. And most of the time, we're very successful doing that. And we support award shows, we support galas, we support network evenings and stuff like that. And we help the companies grow coordinated worldwide. So if you would like to visit a fair abroad, there's a certain or a special funding program to support you financially in that question.
Thank you very much for this. I mean, I feel that we can speak forever, you know, but we have beautiful 2 panels after that. The one is the way we play with venture capitals and also startups and also hub for gaming. And after that, we have a beautiful session of family office, startups, and corporates, the way they work together to make, I would say even Germany, not only Berlin, much more sustained. So Michel, thank you very much for this. And if you have any final words that you want the world to listen, this is the right moment.
I forgot one important thing. Speaking of family offices, business angels, family offices are very welcome to join the Berlin journey. So if you have any ideas for this wonderful city of Berlin, please ring me up. We'll be there. We'll find a way to work together.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for having you here today.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Pleasure. We're already hugging. So I would love to invite to the stage Max Sieberg, a very good friend that actually we were in a panel together, gaming. Please come to the stage. Max will take over and present the speakers.
Good morning, everyone. Ragnar, you can also join us already. My name is Maximilian Seeburg, and I'm the founder and managing director of OneUp Capital. And today we want to talk about the future of gaming. How's gaming going to evolve over the next decade? How is the way we play games going to change over the next 10 years? Historically speaking, assessing the future of gaming is quite a difficult task to do. So I'm not going to do this by myself, but with me today we have someone that has changed the industry quite prominently in a way, not just how we play games with each other, but also against each other, especially in this field of esports. Please welcome the the founding managing partner of Bitkraft Ventures, Jens Hilgers. Thank you for being here, Jens. With him, we have in the entrepreneurial field or realm, if we would like to stay in there, someone who has changed the digital business world of Germany quite a bit by co-founding companies such as Smarto. Please welcome founding managing partner of the AI fund, Ragnar Kruse. Thank you for being here, Ragnar. And last but not least, Manu Chair, someone who wears many hats, but they all fit you so well, from advising the foreign office on gaming strategy, as well as co-founding the game lab Berlin of the Humboldt University, Manu Chair Shamsrizi. Thank you for being here, Manu. Guys, we're going to dive directly into this because time is of the essence here. When you think about gaming and the way we play games in the future, I think it's quite important to think about where we are playing games. Today we play games on mobile devices, on virtual reality devices, on PC console. Now, when we think about the next decade, where do you think we're going to play actually those games? Where is this going to take place and what kind of form? Please feel free to just start, anyone who has a first thought on this.
I would ask the question quite the other way around. Where won't we play games? Because if you think of gaming as a cultural technique, the question of how we are going to play in the future has always been there. And if you go back to cultural theory, people would argue that the way we play will inform and shape the way we do everything else in the future. Or to make it more concrete, when the corona pandemic came up, and Jens will have experienced that as well, no one who was in charge of a World of Warcraft clan had any issues doing virtual teamwork, right? So take that as a guiding principle. If you look at gaming, you'll see how the rest of the world might look like in 10 years. Virtual currencies came up there first. AI was mainly trained in games, and so on and so on. And combine that with the physical, as we see in the title, technologies that we have right now, and you'll see we'll play everywhere. We'll need to make everything playful, even our administration, our business organizations, because the next generation of employees, the next generation of consumers, the next generation of voters have been growing up as gamers, so they're used to certain tech and certain cultural techniques that makes it easy and surround around them. So I'll say we'll play everywhere and we'll play embedded. It might not even feel as... But I will play at my tower PC because I'm old school. So, but that's not the main thing.
Shall I add some numbers? So
Feel free, Ragnar.
we'll be mobile. We have today about 7 billion mobile users globally out of 9 billion people. I think on mobile today about 2.7 billion or 2.5 there on mobile. It's estimated within the next 4 years to be above 3 billion. Yeah. And we always, when we're in Germany here, everyone has a PC and a mobile device. In most of the other world, the mobile device is the only device. And if you look at what mobile today can do, my last company I started in 2005, 30 million smartphones, versus now nearly 7 billion. So it will be on mobile. It might be connected to other devices. I know the consoles are also quite large today at about 1.2 billion. I think the interesting part is you will be able to connect mobile to larger screens, to keyboards, to augmented reality. There are those glasses where you can actually put in your mobile and it's augmenting the experience, but it will be mobile on a global basis.
You're very bullish on that. Jens, what is your thought on this?
I tend to probably disagree to some extent, but I think it's a bit about the definition of what does mobile actually mean as a platform, and you've broadened that quite substantially at the end of your statement there. I think mobile is at a really difficult place nowadays, and by mobile I refer to like smartphone or like tablet-driven smart touch devices. It's been hampered in the last years, in particular by the regulation around app stores. We have seen the mobile gaming ecosystem suffer substantially. Startups were not well advised to build on that platform to begin with. And I would say that what we see today on the mobile platform in terms of offerings and innovation is actually fairly poor compared with where it was like 10, 15 years ago. That's part number one. So I don't think that is a great setup for the next years in particular for mobile as a platform. Again, by mobile I refer to iOS in the first place, Android in the second place, which are the primary mobile gaming platforms to begin with, and that form factor. Secondly, I do believe ultimately that form factor and what we interpret mobile to be today is an entrance into what ultimately is immersion. Great gaming experiences will ultimately, as great entertainment experiences are, want the deepest level of immersion that you can find. And mobile devices by form factor, by the touch capabilities and touch requirements that they have, are limited to that extent. Now, again, there's a case for you just have GPU or CPU in your hand, and at the end of the day, you connect it with like a big screen or like a VR headset, but then it removes that a bit of how we would interpret today mobile as a platform, right? So that said, I think the future of gaming and where it takes place in terms of the platform, let's define platforms. Consoles, PCs, mobile, VR, AR, potentially in the forms of like head-mounted displays like the Quest or the PlayStation VR headset. Amongst these platforms, I think we will see in the first place the sharpest rise on VR, AR, just simply because it is still underrepresented and sees the most profound like progress in terms of innovation, form factor changes, like power changes or like capability changes that make it a better and more usable device. Amongst the other platforms, I think mobile will pretty much stay where it is and serve as an entrance into PC and console. And we can see that in emerging markets in particular. In emerging markets, you see dominantly mobile to begin with. And then ultimately it moves and migrates to more powerful gaming platforms, such as the PC, such as the console. Yeah?
So there's been a few very interesting points mentioned now. I think mobile, everyone mentioned as still being very, very strong. It has to become more immersive in a certain way. When you now mentioned virtual reality, for example, something that is not yet like an everyday household product, you slightly mentioned on that. I just want to bring that point up again. What needs to happen, just to underline this again, to make this a household item, such as a mobile device or like a console device? What needs to change? You meant formability. Like what needs to happen that this is growing in that direction?
What needs to happen for what exactly to take place?
That's virtual reality, like a more immersive technology.
I think it's very simple. I think it's a question of convenience. Like when I got involved with the first like head-mounted displays, just like around 2013, 14, 15 is when we saw the first generation of like commercial like scale and consumer like head-mounted displays with the Quest 1, right? Like you had a cable on your head. Like you had a fairly heavy and clunky headset. Like that is not an item that you like, not a device that will you just casually use every day. How did the smartphone become a great gaming platform? By being very accessible, like always connected, right? Always around yourself. And that made for a great place to conveniently pick up and have a quick session of games. And ultimately also brought forward a very unique breed and blend of video games that catered to that like place of usage, right? The VR platform in itself is not convenient. It is a device where to set it up, to find your place on how to play it, which typically is also like when you play VR, you will not sit in necessarily like in a chair like this. You will have to like stand and move around. Like it's something that typically to play to its capabilities, it will require you to potentially move, like full body movement as well. So I think what we need to see device size shrink to make it more convenient. We need to see the visual capabilities to continue to grow, 4K, 8K, and beyond, to deliver really true immersion where it already feels you're immersed completely with the HMD. And lastly, a great level of connectivity without wires attached, so that it's really convenient to like put it on, put it out, not even feel like you have something on your head to begin with.
Thank you very much. Manuel, did you want to add something to this?
Yeah, to build up on what Jens said, which I wholeheartedly agree with, we might also end up experiencing that while this technology group, VR, XR, AR, you name it, has originally been developed and accelerated in gaming, might be accelerated elsewhere for a while by industrial metaverse or whatever the hype is, it is called outside of gaming, before it comes back. It wouldn't be the first time. We've seen that with many technologies that originally emerged in gaming because, and we can prove that by studies, game devs go beyond business models. Many of these people are interested in solving a problem the best way possible. And even before investors come and see how it can be turned into a business model, which is a great motivation. We saw that with AI, right? Dota 2 was where OpenAI trained parts of the algorithm structures before it became famous at ChatGPT, and now we see generative AI playing back into gaming industry and being used, but for a short time it had to accelerate outside. Maybe that's also the case with VR.
Well, for sure. That is exactly what you see happening today. We do see a profound number of startups that started with like, hey, we're going to deliver like a great IP or franchise on like VR as a platform, that pivoted into ultimately providing training services, police forces or a fireman to like train virtually in a gamified environment. Very, very powerful, very cost efficient. By the way, biggest challenge with that for these companies is purely regulation and like just encrusted structures. Even though it's like highly performant, efficient way to train new workforce on their tasks and duties. But anyway, like you're totally right. Like on the professional side, VR is a platform that brings forward profound capabilities and efficiency already today. And in gaming, it needs these next generation devices. I think it's going to be like, if you count by Quest numbers, Quest 5, Quest 6 is when we're on a commercial grade where consumer adoption might just like ultimately grow exponentially.
But one thing that we can definitely agree on is that gaming and gaming technologies can definitely be an enabler for different industries and other industries, and that's a fantastic thing. Sorry, Ragnar, you wanted to add one last thing to this before we move on?
Just looking at numbers, there are 20 million VR devices just now out there, and we know where Apple is tomorrow they have, Monday they have again a big announcement about their iOS and so on. So there's a long way to go. The predictions is that there will be about 50 million devices. And I've been at Snap, I told you, Meta, and kind of looking where are they on their development. Yeah. On the other side, on smartphones, when you look at AMD is rattling up, Qualcomm is rattling up to do edge, more on edge. So they're including more and more AI chips on the device, which will make it much more powerful. So you don't need to do everything on servers. That's coming up again with tomorrow with Apple Intelligence being announced, a lot being done on edge. We can see and foresee what's going to happen. Mobile devices, again, will become much more powerful, and it will create more opportunities, again, also for mobile developers to add additional features, which makes it more attractive to work on those devices. And they will get larger. You have those foldable devices. Yeah. And again, in Asia, I've seen this often. You can connect them today to a larger screen if there's a larger screen available. So you might have a little device in your pocket, but you play on a large screen.
And they most likely have to become more powerful in order to deliver on all of those immersive technologies. Now, we've talked a lot about where, on what devices we're going to play games in the future. But, I mean, every game essentially is the creation, historically at least, of developers, right? Now, what I think is particularly interesting when we see at the moment, when we think about who develops games, that there's a big paradigm shift happening, right? Of course, the core of every game is the creative mindset, the emotional intelligence of a developer. But what we've seen in the last recent years is that more and more user-generated content is taking over, where, for example, the highest-grossing games of all times are purely a sandbox, a tool sandbox of that are given to users that can create new content. On top of that, we have artificial intelligence that is becoming more and more powerful to, become more immersive, not just delivering text and images, but trying to help this complexity of gaming and developing that further. So my question here to you guys is, who do you think is going to make those games in the future? Are we still going to rely on developers? Is that going to completely change? Is a paradigm shift happening?
The paradigm shift has been happening for many, many years. One way to frame that would be to look at it as prosuming, right? The mix of a consumer and someone who produces, which we've seen in many industries. And again, gaming is simply at the cutting-edge forefront of all digital economy, which then is at the cutting forefront for all industry, very broadly spoken. Modding has been a cultural technique in the gaming world for many, many, many decades. First physical and then software only. Many of the great esport titles originated from a community modding a game that was out there. Now, when you ask who's going to make the games, I personally believe the AAA studios are here to stay. They have economy of scale benefits. There are other players who now have a better chance. Indie studios, which might now use certain narrow AI technologies to free up creative energy or capacity, so to say, because some of the coding or the code review might be automated. You do not need the same amount of time and energy and cost to come up with assets and so on. This will allow for indie studios, which is a great chance for Berlin, for example, to produce games that formerly had been way too complicated. Take Baldur's Gate 3 as an example. You need a big team of creative people writing a lot of text, and it's a piece of love. I believe that, right? It has won 50 Games of the Year titles, not without a reason. In the future, it might be more affordable and realistic for an indie gaming studio to come up with a game that uses generative AI for procedural development of maps, for NPCs that talk to you. So it's getting, in the end, in an optimistic perspective, it's going to be a more fair playing field, which also comes with risks. Obviously.
So developers are not going to become obsolete, and it's more that AI will build on top of that.
Max, if you talk to developers, right, which we've done a lot, right, in
I would not
studies
say
and
that to a
also
developer
personally in our own projects, who of those people? I mean, these are the monks of our time, right? I mean, they can read and write and produce in virtual environments where 99% of the people can't. Who of those highly qualified people loves to do code documenting and code reviewing? No one does. So if that can be automated, then they have more creative capacity to come up with better gaming ideas. Because let's face it, we also need good gaming ideas. It's at the moment, parts of the industries are also copycats, and you've seen with Sony's latest hero shooter how that might end up.
All right,
not well.
Fair enough. Jens, is that also your thought on this?
Two comments on what was said previously. So number one, those games that you would characterize as games that bring forward or enable user-generated content are not the highest grossing games out there to begin with. I think that's a fundamental issue that we might have to see. What are these games, by the way? The largest one that we're talking about, it is Roblox, which is now the largest game on the planet with more than 400 million users playing it every single month. It is Fortnite from Epic Games, and it is Minecraft. Now, Minecraft might just be a very profitable one. The other two, though, are not very profitable at this point. Or if you know that Roblox is a public company, where people wonder, like, when would it ultimately turn profitable? And Epic Games has not been able to go public because their P&L just doesn't allow them to go public just yet. Yeah? For likely some of the same reasons. So I think a fundamental question when we come to user-generated content and such platforms is how is the economic model for games that suck 70% of the global entertainment time out of gaming audience. These three games, 70% of entertainment time. Let that sink. Yeah?
That's insane. Yeah.
That is insane, yes. And it's a big problem for other startups in the space. Yeah? So who should be the economic beneficiary from all that entertainment time being consumed, and how does that work out? I think we still have to see how that ultimately works out. It's going to be a fascinating other topic of how much of what they bring forward as platforms should be interoperable open design versus like a single public company doing that. Yeah? The second part where I disagree with you to quite some extent is that video games and video games development, which we address here, brings together two profoundly different skill sets in the first place, which is unlike pretty much any other tech-like segment does, and that is creativity, what you typically find in Hollywood movie productions and whatnot, and high technological proficiency and depth. Like designing online systems, to talk about the latter, where hundreds of thousands of online gamers meet and concurrently in the same place, that is borderline rocket science. That takes a lot of engineering skill to make that happen and work at scale globally. Creativity at that part is equally difficult. Managing creatives is an incredibly difficult job. And these two coming together really only happens in one industry, and that's the gaming industry. So your statement that a developer that now has more time to become creative, I wouldn't sign up to at all, because this is two different DNA. A developer of a video game, a back-end engineer, that mostly would do the task that you describe is absolutely, sorry, I'm very binary here, right? Not absolutely, but he's very likely to be not a very great creative guy. Very rarely there's talent that can bring these two things together. They ultimately play towards different parts of the brain. So I am fairly concerned not only for developers in the video game space, but for developers broadly, where undeniably and unquestionably AI is taking what is resources that human beings bring forward, just out and make them more efficiently at ever larger and more impressive scale. Like what I've just seen yesterday being announced by another company. What was the name of that? Replit was the last one, but we have a new one which is doing server deployment like looks into error logs, debugs code entirely automatically. Like it's not only documentation. It's not only like compliment you with like completing statements. This is entire code generation for entire problems, like with debugging on the server. Like this is profound.
So it's not just grunt work, which will be basically fixed by artificial intelligence.
Absolutely.
It's going far beyond that.
100%.
Interestingly, I totally agree with the non-gaming developers. I might be too naive about the gaming devs because maybe I want to believe that they find their new role in interdisciplinary teams.
But what is this? I mean, we will inevitably see that these basic tasks and like likely even more advanced tasks in coding and engineering, but equally, by the way, on the creative side, which we can address as well, where AI plays a significant role, like will be replaced by AI. But we need to see like what is new opportunities for that talent with that skill set, one like that side that they can bring forward afterwards.
Which might end up in us having more projects in general, because the teams might end up being smaller and you will see more indies. On the first point that Jens said, that I believe is of uttermost importance, right? Those games that in academia sometimes are called proto-metaverses, Roblox, Fortnite, Minecraft, them not being profitable is from an economic policy perspective and a cultural policy, and which we won't go into today, I believe, from a foreign policy perspective, a risk. Why? Because these are platforms that are used as soft power. In Fortnite, people build a Holocaust museum. In Minecraft, Reporters Without Borders built an uncensored library where opposition can in autocratic states can have access to text that they cannot access on normal social media. And for technical reasons, it's harder to censor because in-game content cannot at the moment be automatically read, at least not in Minecraft. So losing these platforms is a complicated issue, and we might need to look into ideas on how to allow these platforms to survive. We've got that on a European level right now. One of the very first citizens' initiatives on asking the European Parliament to look into should gaming companies and publishers be allowed to close down server infrastructure, or if games are considered a cultural artifact, shouldn't they be forced to, for example, give out open source so that the community or the state at some point runs the server? So these three games, the proto-metaverses, are way more than games, which means people from outside the gaming industry should have an interest in finding ways how to make it possible for the gaming industry to continue running these platforms.
Going back quickly to the point of developers and how they might have to change mindset, skill set, or anything. Ragnar, what is your thought about AI becoming such a crucial part in development?
Yeah. So again, by numbers, there are predictions that developers, any developers, might have a 4 times capacity and so on. If you talk today to developers, CTOs who run teams, it's increasing. AI tools are increasing their productivity somewhere between 25 to 50%. So it's not factor 4. We might get there. Yeah, but clearly it will increase productivity and therefore the abilities. I think more interestingly is when you look at some of those Gen AI tools, it will allow us to create much more photorealistic graphics. Yeah. Again, it will not replace the creativity, but it will add to the creativity and therefore increase the productivity also of creative workers. Yeah. So, and therefore the message always would be adopt those technologies, use and leverage them. If you don't, you fall behind on your competition. Yeah.
That is absolutely fair to say. So the emotional mindset, the emotional intelligence mindset, the creativity, that is definitely hard to replace. And that's maybe not the aim of it, but the productivity is something we want to push.
To add another analogy, there are predictions that when it comes to film studios, we will see by 2030 the first films which are completely done by AI, but by programmers who do it, but you will not have actors. Yeah. So there will be some, but not everyone will have it. If you look at those production numbers, and we probably will see something similar in the gaming industry. Yeah. And not everyone. There will be some. There might be some indie studios who leverage the technology well enough to actually come up with a really great game, which is then capturing something. So it creates an opportunity again for not just the big studios, but also indie studios to maybe come up with a big hit.
That's fair to say. I mean, games obviously have a far more complex mechanism than a movie has in order of all the assets that need to be delivered, text, video, audio. There's so much more in the gameplay mechanics. But to wrap this a little bit up and look again into the next 10 years, and this is something that I'm always very interested in, but on a personal level, what are you absolutely most excited about, or maybe even a bit worried and concerned about when thinking about gaming over the next 10 years and how our digital and maybe physical worlds are going to merge closer and closer together? Now
that you said what we are worried about,
you don't have to. You can also say what you're most excited about.
I'm worried about that what we build as a gaming community / gaming industry might also end up being the world's most productive factory for disinformation, because who is able to build an alternative reality can do that, and it is always a question of whom you do this for. And this is where we are very, very weak at the moment in Germany, because we are one of the world's leading markets in consuming games. We do not have the political framework to become a leading country in producing them. And if you do not become a leading country of gaming industry, you won't have the transfer effects. You won't have game devs going into automotive, going into real estate, going wherever you think and innovate there. And you will see more effects like Saudi Arabia buying into an esport league, Tencent buying shares of Western gaming studios, and suddenly Taiwan disappears from a map. So these are things that we only can counter if we have a strong gaming industry, which we need the political framework for.
Thank you very much. Ragnar, what are you most excited about?
My hope would be that we are able to combine e-learning with gaming, so incentivize learning, because with AI we will be able to actually take humankind knowledge and make it available to everyone. Incentivize and specifically youngers and so on will create much more productivity in e-learning, which is kind of...
Surely has a big social impact then as well. Thank you. Jens?
You see, I think the excitement that drives us and drove me most for a long time is that video games companies ultimately design true digital worlds. The simulation, it's all simulations, right? And as they get ever more immersive, as they get ever more depth and enriched by systems and systems, they ever more are that digital twin of the physical world. They will bring forward their own digital societies, which is something that I find beautiful, because it allows us on this planet to look beyond borders of physical nature and other natures that we have today. That is, by the way, something that inspired me as a gamer early on, was that me building something in the 90s with people that played the same game, and I didn't know what they were. I didn't know what race they were, what color their skin was, what age they were. We just built shit together. Now, a digital society allows for that to happen. I find that a very beautiful thing. I do think that suggests greater opportunity for humanity at large. What I'm concerned about is similar to what was said before, is that we need systems of interoperability and openness to power these worlds. That is what the metaverse would be defined at, and not single public companies or private companies who power that, so that we end up in what you would consider the matrix.
That's wonderful. I think this gives us a quite hopeful and promising view into the future, especially thinking about how gaming can bring us all closer together beyond, as you say, certain parameters or certain mindsets that we have. Guys, thank you so much for coming here on a Sunday morning to chatting with us about the future of gaming, about the next 10 years. I think we have an exciting future ahead, definitely in that space. So thank you very much again.
Thank you.